Hi, AGP students. Welcome back. What we have here for today in this particular video is going to be the review of the SAT March 2020 section number 3. And so we're going to be going through these answers and reviewing you and helping you to understand the approach on them. So looking here, what we can see on question 1, we see that we have a table. Essentially, it's kind of like a function table for what we have here. And we're trying to have it to identify an equation that so happens to match this. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. Now, one way we could do this is that we could just treat these individual ordered pairs as, just as values here in an ordered pair. So that'd be x1, that'd be y1, be x2, and that would be y2. And so we can then find our slope there and identify which one of these is our slope, and then we can find our intercept. So looking at this, we can see, okay, change of y over change of x. So change of y, that's going to be y2 minus y1, which that's going to be 3 minus 2. And then over here, we see that we have 1 minus 0. And so we're left with 1 over basically 1, or we see the slope is 1 here. So knowing that, we can eliminate these as answer choices, and then we're just left to find our intercept, which we can see on this particular one. The intercept, remember the y-intercept is equivalent to when x equals 0. So if we look for when x equals 0, we see x equals 0 right there, so therefore the y-intercept is 2. There's our answer choice. So really, if you didn't really need to solve the slope of this one, if you see that the y-intercept is 0 right there, I'm sorry, that is the x, the 0, there's my y-intercept, and that it's equivalent to 2. We can see the only one that has a positive 2 is A, and there's our answer choice, if you would have noticed that at first. Okay, so number 2, we see we're talking about angles and lines. We want to know, and we see these parallel lines. Remember, we see parallels and lines in there that largely refers to like z transversals that we have in our problems. We know this is 40 degrees here of things. Well, we also know, like, again, we know this is 80, right? Because this is our vertical right there. So we know that's 80 and this is supplemental, so that's 120. So that means that has to be 60 degrees there, right? From there, what we can then do is, looks like we can draw, where's our z? Let's see, so I can draw z right here, right? And so I know that as well of itself is 60 there. We also have like I know we've got another set in here somewhere. Okay, so here we know this has to be 40, right? Because this is vertical, this is vertical, that has to be 60. That has to be 60. I'm trying to find my other z in here. I'm not sure why I'm struggling with this one real quick. 60, 80. How do I confidently know what that is? Okay, let's see. Oh, well, okay. So if I know this is my z here and this is 60, then this whole segment here, right? This whole segment here has to be 120 degrees, right? Why? I'm not, hold on. Z there. So I also know there's a z that is here as well. Alright. So if that is 60, then that means, okay, so this 60, so that's got to be 40. Yeah, so that means that has to be 40 as well, too. Yeah, so that has to be 40 degrees. Okay, yeah, so the answer choice is A there. I think. Sorry, it took me a moment to see my second z in here, which I kind of knew I needed to have because there's two sets of parallel lines. So there's a z here, and then there's another z here that you can see. And so drawing that out, you can feel that that's 40 degrees. Okay, number 3, this is just a function problem. We're just plugging in 4 for here. So we're taking the 4 and we're just plugged out where x is at. Right there, right there. So we're going to have 4 squared minus 5 times 4 plus 6. So 16 minus 20 plus 6. So I'm going to add the positive terms together. So it's 22 minus 20, which gives me 2. And so the answer choice is B there. All right, let's look here on number 4. Looks like we have a linear sort of inequality that's in a linear form. It's in standard, so that we see that. We also see, so we see the form here is ax plus by is, again, some sort of inequality to C here. So let's read our question here. It says Araceli can spend up to $20 on streamers and balloons for a party. Streamers cost $1.49 a pack. Balloons cost $4.39 a pack. Which of the following inequalities represents the situation? Well, we know she can't spend any more than $20, right? So that's less than 20, less than 20. That is greater than 20, greater than 20. So C and D are gone for that reason. We know streamers are $1.49, so $1.49 is streamers, so that agrees, that agrees. And then we're adding the balloons, $4.39 pack, so we wouldn't be subtracting them, we'd be adding them, so B is the answer choice there. Okay, number 5 here. So again, we see slope-intercept, we see another word problem. We see this is y equals, well, it's sort of backwards in some ways, but essentially it's just slope-intercept that we have here. So as we're looking here, it says Bill is planning to drive 1,000 miles to visit his family. He plans to drive 250 miles per day. So there's our slope. We see that there is the slope because we see miles per day. Which of the following represents the remaining distance D in miles that Bill would have to drive to reach his family after n days. So we know we start off with 1,000 miles, right? We know we start off 0 days, 1,000 miles, and that we're decreasing, to some rate by the slope of negative 250 per day, 250 miles per day. So if I know I have a negative slope of 250, that's positive, that's the wrong intercept. So we can see D is the answer here. So yeah. Yeah, because we're starting off with 1,000 miles positive, so yeah, it's not that there. So D is the answer choice on this one. Okay, so here what we're doing, we're essentially just adding these exponent terms, so make sure you don't multiply these terms. We see we have x cubed here as the largest one, so that's gone, and then we only have 1x squared, so we see x squared, and then we have x and negative x, so when we add x to negative x, just equals 0. So C is the answer choice on that one. Okay. We see we have this function table again, but we're graphing it instead this time. So the easiest thing we always want to do is kind of look at the y-intercept here. So we see the x equals 2, the y equals 2 when x equals 0. So when we see that, again, be mindful, we're seeing we're units of 10 here. So we know that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So that there agrees. That there agrees. That does not agree. That there agrees. Okay, so let's see if we can't find another point that we can easily identify. So here, again, we're in units of 2. So this is probably the next one we can find, negative 2, negative 2. Well, we see here that does not happen here. That negative 2 would be negative 2, that would be right there. So it's not A. Again, it again be right there. That does not go through. It's not that one. So this one does go through, so it's D there. So here, yeah, knowing I chose negative 2 because each increment of my lines are in 2. So I knew I was going to get a nice intersection right through that point that I could identify quite easily. Okay, we're looking here. This is a rational equation. This is a rational equation. And I know it's a rational equation because we see that we have fraction and variables in fraction form. Essentially, this is just a factoring one because that's saying that's really this statement is saying x plus 2 over x plus 2 times x plus 2 because it's squared, and we're just eliminating one of those terms. So just now 1 over x plus 2. And so B is the answer choice. If you wanted to, you could also make up numbers. You could just say, like, I don't know, x equals 1. And so you would get there on the top, you would get 3. There on the bottom, you would get 9, right? Because 1 plus 2 is going to be 3, 3 squared, so 1 over 3. And you'll see that yields 1 over 3 as well. Okay, number 9 is which of the following is equation of the line that the xy plane contains the point 1, 3, and 5, 15. So first off, we got to find the slope here. And we notice that all the slopes are different. So if we find the slope, we find our answer. So we're just going to do, remember, change of y over change of x. So 15 minus 3. 5 minus 1. That's going to give me 12 over 4 or 3. So 3 is the slope. A is my answer choice. Number 10 here. So here we see we're having infinitely many solutions. So remember, when we have infinitely many solutions, essentially what we have is, remember, we have a line that has basically they're on top of each other, and that we know that the slopes are the same, the y-intercepts are the same. So we need to work on this. Multiply by 2. Multiply the other side by 2. So now we have 4x plus b equals 4x plus 16. We want to know what the value of b is here. And so we can then see that b here is equivalent to 16. B is the answer choice. Okay, so this one is one of those composite shape ones. And so we're adding two shapes. So what we can do is we can kind of draw a line that goes from here to here. We also know that if this is 4 and the whole side is 7, this has to be 3. So it's 3, 4, 5. What is the area? So the area of the square is 16. Area of the triangle is going to be 1/2 times the base, which is 3, times its height, which is 4, which is going to give me 6, 12. It's going to give me 6. So the answer choice, 16 plus 6 equals 22. B is the answer choice on that one. All right, looking at number 12, it's asking for what is the y-intercept for the x. So remember, we talking about the y-intercept. What we know, and this is doing something kind of like something like this, right? So remember the y-intercept, we know x equals 0 there. So if we put, we solve for this, is y equals 4 to the 0 power. Remember, anything to the 0 power is 1. The other thing, if you also know about the y-intercept, remember that x always equals 0. If you look at your answer choices, this is the only one with the 0 as an x. No, no, no. So C is the answer choice there. Okay, what is the sum of the solutions? Remember what the solutions given? Remember when we're talking about the sum of the solutions, we have that formula of negative b over a of our quadratic term. But we notice here that we have a quadratic is equivalent to a linear, right? And so we have to move all of this over. And so now we've got x squared minus 14x plus 40, and we're going to subtract the 2x and subtract the 1. This is all equal to 0 now. So that's going to give me x squared minus 16x plus 3 equals 0. So we have negative b over a. That's going to give me negative 16 over 1. So 16 is the answer choice. D is the answer choice there. Okay. Looking at number 14. So this is a really kind of, again, don't be distracted by all this text here. We see one, we see an equation, right? 2, it says in terms of, and if you look at your answer choices, what we can notice here is that here we're in L and we want to be in V, right? So we're just shifting these things around. So all this stuff, forget about it. Okay, forget about it. It's just a distraction. So first off, let me rewrite my expression. So we have L equals S times 1 minus V squared over C squared. So we need to divide by S to get rid of S. So now we have L over S equals the square root of 1 minus V squared over C squared. We now need to square our root. And so we need to square this side. And so now I'm left with L squared over S squared equals 1 minus V squared over C squared. So we see L squared over S squared in all of these, right? So there's not much we can do. So now we need to subtract the 1. And so I'm going to subtract the 1 over here. So now what I'm going to have is I'm going to have L squared over S squared minus 1 equals negative V squared over C squared. However, I have a negative now. So what's that going to do is I now have to distribute my negative. So I want to, this is essentially saying negative 1, so I'm going to divide by negative 1 over here. Same thing here. I want to, divide by negative 1. So that's going to flip these terms here, essentially. That's going to flip this, or distribute the negative 1, flip these terms. So now this is going to be 1 minus L squared over S squared equals V squared over C squared. So let's see if we can eliminate anything here. We see we have 1 minus L squared, so 1 plus, 1 minus, 1 plus. So now we're between A and C. You always try to divide and conquer when you can. Now we've got to take the square root of these values, so which we then have to take the square root of these values. So that's now going to give me the square root of 1 minus L squared over S squared equals V over C. And now lastly, what we have to do is we have to multiply by C and multiply by C. And so what you'll see is that A is the answer choice here, not C. Well, 1 we knew after we take the square root of those terms, I knew it was A. So, okay, let's look at number 15. We see it's an exponential. You kind of see these problems here. Y equals A to the X to the B power. So we know we're talking about exponential here. It says half-life of a certain substance in an aquatic environment is 150 years. That's the half-life, is 150 years. Which of the following exponential function best models the amount in grams of substance T years after 200 grams of substance is applied to the aquatic environment? So we're starting off with 200 grams here, right? So that is our A. That is our A term. So gone. And the half-life, that's talking about these terms here. That's what that's talking about. So, and it's is every 150 years. So it's not that. This is it. Because if I had 150 there, right, 150 over 150, that just gives me a term of 1, which means that 200 is now 100 after 150 years. Okay. Number 16 here says, what is the value of M? So we're just calculating slope here. So we're going to go up to and over 1. So we see the slope is 2 here. 17, it says, what is the value of Y, right? We're solving for Y, so it means we want to eliminate X, correct? What I can do here is move that over. And so what that's going to do is going to give me X equals 5 minus Y. And so then I can take this piece, put it right where X is. And so now I'm going to have 2 times 5 minus Y equals 5. 10 minus 2Y equals 5. Move this over here, move that over there, so minus 5. So that's going to be 5 equals 2Y, or Y equals 5 halves. Good there. Here it says, what is the positive value of x that satisfies the equation above. So we're just solving for the solutions here. So we're really just looking at setting these terms to 0. So we've got x minus 3 equals 0 and x plus 1 equals 0. So that's going to give me x equals -1. So that's not it. This gives me x equals 3. So there's my answer choice there. Okay, here we have decimals. So what we would like to do when we have decimals, we want to multiply by a factor of 10. So that's going to give me 30x minus 6 equals 18. So I can move that over now. So that's going to give me 30x equals 24. And then divide by 30. And that's going to give me 4 goes into that. Oh, hold on a second. 6 goes into 24 4 times. And goes into 35 times. So 4/5 or 0.8 is my answer there. Number 20 here. What we can see here, a square is inscribed. A circle is 6 squared root of 2. So remember when we see that, that should be sending big bells off that that's a 45 right triangle. Circle's inscribed. Square is inscribed in a circle with a radius of 6 squared root of 2. So what is the perimeter? It's asking for the perimeter here. Okay, let's try my circle. I'm trying to draw a big enough one to make it easier. And I know this is not perfect. I want to draw a square here and side here. I know it's not perfect, so just bear with me. So we know that the a square, so the radius is 6 square root of 2. So what we can do is we can just kind of draw the center here, draw a point out to here, draw a point out to here. So we know that it's 6 square root of 2, 6 square root of 2. And remember with our 45, let me kind of give myself a little bit more room here to show you. And draw one of the proper orientation too. That this is x, this is x, this is x square root of 2. So now we know that if this here, because this is our right angle here, is x square root of 2, and these are equivalent to x, right? Then we have 6 square root of 2 times the square root of 2, which that's just going to give me 6 times 2, which gives me 12. So now we know that this side is 12, this side is 12, this side is 12, this side is 12. So the perimeter is 48 when you add up those terms. So, well, thank you very much. I hope that was helpful to you. And we'll certainly see you again. Thanks. Bye-bye.